Okay, I think we're about ready. They haven't closed the doors yet. I was hoping for a captive audience here, so boy, tough crowd. Oh, there we go, a little bit. Okay. This is the talk about Salesforce.com as a company portal and incorporating multiple data sources, and that's going to be really a big theme of what we've done. And it also talks about how we've incorporated a lot of business intelligence in it. And it's also kind of a tale of how we've taken a very standalone application of Salesforce and really almost developed it into something very, very unique. So I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see how it unrolls here. My name is Gordon Petrie. I'm the finance director for CCBR Synarc. As you'll see in a few minutes, it's a kind of an unusual company, and so this is a little bit of an unusual application, but I'm sure that you all say the same thing about your own company in some ways. I also had some help from Sebastian Rivera. Sebastian, where are you in the room? Sebastian is with IBM Cognos, and as you'll see, we have done quite a bit of reliance on Cognos as well and integrated it into this program. So none of this, of what you're about to see, and you're really only seeing just a small part of it, would be at all possible without my team. Eric, I don't know if you're in the room. Eric? No, Eric. He's probably one of those really techie things, learning Apex code, because that's primarily what he does. Tom, are you in here? Tom Sloma? No, Tom. He's our Salesforce administrator, and then the other two, Ruben is our business systems analyst, and he does a lot of work for maintaining not only the Salesforce end, but also a lot of the peripheral systems. And then Nikki Foe, who is an accountant who's actually turned a bit of a programmer as well. So that's kind of our motley team for putting all of this together. So key, I just want to say also, as you know, Salesforce is a public company, and as such, here is the safe harbor statement. And if you have any further questions, please see their website. It's on there. And that's about all I'll say about that. And then what I want to do is a couple things. I want to spend, before I really get to these cases, I want to spend a bit of time kind of giving you a little bit of background on the company and what the company does. And then want to talk about the actual implementation and what we did and then what it's achieved. And then what I'd like to do is go through three very simple cases of some integration that we've done and some effective use of some Cognos reporting and integration of our financial systems into Salesforce, which has really leveraged some key benefits for our company. So with that in mind, let's get a little bit about CCBR Synarc. We basically, what we do is we run clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies. And we help pharmaceutical companies in one of three different ways. One is that we actually run the actual clinical trials that center around medical imaging. And that's primarily the group that I'm associated with. And that's essentially the largest part of the group. We have another part of the group that is that actually goes out and recruits the patients, tries to find patients that have particular diseases that fit into the category that they're trying to do some of these trials with, and that happens worldwide. And then we have a third division that does a lot of the biochemical testing, primarily around bone metabolism, things like that. So we deal with a lot of things like osteoporosis, musculoskeletal diseases, oncology, things like that, things that will involve some kind of imaging, and that typically is how all of these three businesses fit together. So our primary customers are big pharma, biotech, medical device. You've probably heard of just about all of them. We are a very dispersed company. We are based, are headquartered in Copenhagen, Denmark, although we have most of our employees in San Francisco. But we also have major operations in Hamburg, Germany, Paris, Lyon, France, Beijing, and then we have 11 other countries that we run facilities in, and then we actually contract facilities in just about every country that you could possibly imagine. And we have to interact with them in a big way as well. So we're privately held, and we've got about 350 employees. So what does that really what are some of the peculiar aspects of the business that make things a little bit strange? Well, most companies have a very short sales cycle relative to us. We will typically get into a contract, and that contract, if it's a short study, might last 3 years. But we have several that are lasting 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So we have a very long revenue execution phase. It's not just a matter of days or the time that this person walked in the store. Every study is highly unique. In other words, they have, because all the drugs are studying different aspects of the human body, there's so many variables that they're all different. And as a result of kind of the nature of the work we do, the studies are very highly data intensive. In other words, we pretty much set up very advanced custom applications for every unique study. So why that's important is that suddenly now, for every study, you've got a new application that in some way you have to integrate somehow. The other thing is, because we're in the pharma business, is that it's a validated environment. So there are parts of the business that we can't go in and just change the name of a field within a particular database, because then that means that has to go get validated and tested, and plans have to be written for how you're going to test it, and all kinds of things. So that's another piece that's kind of there's another piece that's kind of interesting, because there's parts of the data that we're very cautious about how we touch it and change it once it's put in place. As I said, the studies are complex, and if you can imagine taking all of this complexity just with one and multiplying it times about 200, because we run about 200 at any given time. So it's a pretty chaotic environment. So when we first came in and started looking at Salesforce, and really looked to revive it, because we really weren't using it that well, even on this, and really not using it in a disciplined way on the sales end, which we are now, by the way. When we first looked at it, we had a system architecture is very similar to this. We had the 200 study databases, all on their own, all with their own reporting tools. In fact, really none of them had their own reporting tools. They were really all done through the back end and things like that. We had other databases, things like Protocol Tracker, which interfaced manually with a lot of other things, but it was a series of access databases, and really that was just a series of databases that tracked what sites did we train, did we send them manuals, when did we send them manuals, things like that. But it's all stuff that we need to know. It's all customer-related stuff, all stuff that fits very nicely into Salesforce. And yet it was sitting off in these unregulated databases, in which case every one of them was different. We also had another database called CDM Tracker. And, really, this isn't a comprehensive list. We had a lot of other situations that were just like this. We had a lot of Excel spreadsheets where things, critical patient information was being kept. Not patient information, but information about the sites, that didn't need to be validated, but it was important for the business. That, in some cases, never got into anything. We developed this central system called EDI. And this is a homegrown system, and it is an engine that helps attempted to bring together a lot of this data. And then on top of that, we had our financial system, which is CostPoint. That's a Dell Tech product, if any of you are familiar with that. It's very, very common in the defense industry and government contracting. It has peculiar aspects of the way it does accounting that we actually needed and still need. And so that was yet a third database that we had to fit into all of this. And then we had Salesforce sitting all alone, not really doing anything except feeding kind of lead and contract information one direction into our accounting database. So we had multiple disparate databases, multiple report interfaces, a bunch of offline data sources. A lot of duplicate entry was required all over. And, a lot of the information, for example, that goes into Protocol Tracker is the same information that goes into study databases, is the same that goes into CostPoint. And you had to enter them all three places, and we never had data that agreed. So I think you know the story. So We had a highly dispersed workforce, multiple disparate data sources, no common UI, no common way to look at all of this because each of these had their own UI. No reporting engine that was common across the company. So anytime you went to a database, you typically had to go to the person that was maintaining that database to find out how to write a report. We resulted in a lot of bad information in the right places, or I guess lack of information in the right places. And specialists had to service all requests. And this is one I had a lot of personal pain with because being the only accountant in San Francisco that had access to CostPoint, anytime a project manager needed to get a hold of an old invoice, who did they have to contact? And that meant that probably 4 or 5 times a day I had to go digging through a set of server files, and hopefully I could find them. Not the best use of my time, not the best use of my people's time, and very frustrating for those involved. I mean, this was a real time suck for a lot of people in a lot of different places. I was just one example of it. We had duplicate entry was often required, and then we also had really high error rates. We had just an incredibly high error rate even on our invoicing as a result of this that resulted, frankly, in some very difficult situations for collections. So what did we want to do? I mean, the first thing that we wanted to do when we got into this implementation is we asked why. Why are we doing it? What is it that we want to accomplish? And it's kind of interesting because now that we're past the major thrust of this, and now we're getting on to new applications that we're bringing into Salesforce, a lot of these are really the same. We still want to connect disparate and integrate a lot of disparate systems. We want to develop a widely available UI that anybody in the company can sit down and they know how to use for the most part. I mean, some of these we've had to provide quite a bit of training because there may be some complex logic about what happens in the workflow that goes beyond it, but we've got a lot of that documented now, by the way, on Salesforce. We wanted, what was very important to us and is absolutely critical to us, was to get a common reporting tool put throughout the company. So if somebody in clinical wants to develop a report, they use the same tool that somebody in finance will use to use the report. So we've got about 5 or 6 people in the company now that are very well trained on how to write, basic report writing, and they can pretty much, as long as they know the metadata and they know where the data is, they can write it. And we're not stuck to getting down to finding one individual that can do it. We wanted to develop self-service applications so people could get in. They can get a lot of the questions answered. We wanted to provide single points of entry. And we wanted to eliminate offline data sources. In other words, we wanted to bring in all these spreadsheets that people were keeping offline that they needed. We needed the information for some purpose, but yet it was being maintained offline, and I think there's all kinds of problems with that. What I do want to say, what's kind of interesting is when we went through this list, and we were really thinking through this, particularly when we got to the single points of entry, we had not really made the decision that Salesforce was going to be the common platform. But as we kept looking around and looking at what's the best tool to bring all of this together, we couldn't find anything that really worked really well. And Salesforce actually provided a great platform for us to do that. So let's talk a little bit about the post-system implementation architecture. If you'll notice, we still have the study databases here, and the reason they're kind of outside the framework right now is that, as I said, these are highly validated. They're highly regulated. We can't change them easily. We've constantly consciously kept a barrier between Salesforce and these study databases simply because our Salesforce application, we can change things very quickly and we can adapt to changes in the business and to the user's needs very quickly. So we've done it that way. We still have our central database for collecting stuff, but we've also included now automatic links that go both ways from our accounting database into Salesforce, and you're going to see that today, also into EBI, and also to our custom database to Salesforce. But I think also what's really important to realize too is that we have taken a lot of these offline and disparate databases, and we built them right into Salesforce. And in the case of a couple of these, I will just say that this GSL, which is what we call the global study list, was done using no Apex code. It was just we were able to develop it completely with the existing Salesforce capabilities. These other two, we've had to put a little bit of Apex code in there, but not a tremendous amount. And then we now have a primary user interface for most of the users now, which is through Salesforce.com. Now, as I mentioned, we also had this need to have a company-wide reporting database or reporting application, and we really have also done that because we have now taken Cognos and we've really wrapped it around Salesforce, EBI, and the accounting system. So now that's how we've kind of achieved that. We have the primary information still gets fed from the study databases into our data collection point, but we can get to that data basically through the EBI interface. So largely, the objectives have been accomplished. Took us 1 year from start. It only took us about 3 people full-time, which I think is really remarkable. We've had some significant efficiency improvements, and I'm actually going to show those at the end of the presentation. Much lower error rates, and people seem to be a lot happier. I mean, it's really been quite different to see how the environment is. And I want to say too, we have many more projects to go. We've had we've had the company now has begun to see the capability of this platform, and it has begun to take, to see some of the potential. And we're actually getting some requests for things that we didn't even think of. I mean, it's really pretty neat. Okay. So now to the cases. That's kind of a long wind-up to the cases. The first is the management of static documents and the value of self-service reporting. And why is that kind of important? And I'm going to show you a little bit about, first of all, how it works. The management of static documents is really important to us for 2 reasons. One is that because our studies are so long, that it's very common that we can have a client come to us and say, oh, we need to see an invoice from 5 years ago. And are there any accountants in the room? Okay. How many times what would you say the probability of 5 years after the fact, if you haven't locked down your books, that maybe that invoice might come off the system a different number than it was? Could it ever happen? Yeah, okay. It can happen, and actually I have seen it happen, and best intentions are that can, even the best intentions and the best accountants in the world, that can happen. And so one of the things that we wanted to do was to provide an exact copy and electronic record of what was sent to the customer. No matter what the system says today, what was sent to them, So that you've got something that's the gold standard. And so that was the one thing that we needed. The other thing is that we bill for 2 reasons. We bill for our services, so we go do stuff and then customer pays us. That's nice. But then we also have to incur a lot of expenses that we pass on to the customers, and the customers, because they're in the regulated environment, want all kinds of receipts and backups and things like that. So not only is it important to get stuff off the system, but we've got to get the backup and put that in the same place, so now we've got a record of what's going on there. So as you can see here, what we've done is we have our work performed comes out of our EBI system, gets fed into our cost accounting system, or our accounting system, and then actually, because Cognos produces some great-looking reports, we actually produce our invoices off of Cognos, but then we have built an automatic feed, and this is all just done through some very simple file sharing methods, where the invoice is automatically picked up by some Irish OCR software, where it actually looks and tags the invoice number and the customer and everything like that, creates information. And we also get the backup documents from a service that we stack them all up, give them to the service, they give us back a file. And we do an OCR on that, and that OCR software actually matches then the documents up. So now we've got 2 documents coming together pretty much automatically now. We don't have, we used to have people that actually shuffled a lot of paper at the end of the month, and now it's pretty much automatic, and it's a lot less error prone. What then happens after the OCR software runs is it produces a PDF file, one that's related to every invoice, and automatically sticks that into another file repository where Salesforce automatically knows to match up the invoice number with the record for that invoice. Okay? So I'm going to just back out of this for just a second. And this is the point where you say, God, I hope the Wi-Fi is working. And that's not where I want it to go. So this is our Salesforce application. This is actually our Salesforce application. I have actually restricted it considerably. We have a lot more tabs, obviously, but we have a contractual obligation to keep customers confidential and all that. So I've had to modify it. So, I'm going to go. We have multiple applications here. We'll get back to this one in just a second. Oh, isn't that special? I'm wondering if I have to log on again. This is where I should have had some good jokes ready to go, huh? It looks like I am not connected, guys. Looks like our network is down. What's that? You have a hardline connection here? Okay. It's over here. Yeah, we've got a problem here. Nuts. Yeah, I think so. This is speaker's worst fear. What's that? Oh, okay. Wow. I got to get me one of these. Now let's see if I got a VPN back in. That might be the problem too. Yep, looks like I'm in. There we go. Okay, so we're going to hop over to sales. Where was I? We were, okay. So the first thing I want to do is show you that, remember that our business is really driven by studies more than anything else. In fact, it's really interesting because we go leads, opportunities, contracts, and then finally we go to studies, which is kind of a unique item. Here we have basically this one is actually a live study. This is actually one that we currently do a lot of work with. But not to give things away for a little further down, but we have basic information about the study. That's nice, and you can see we've got 16,000 patients in this study. There's 366 sites. But what's interesting now is we've got accounts receivable summary information. And what's really cool about this is that we can now go in, and the project manager and management can see, oh, for this study, we have billed them $13,785.92, of which, they've paid us, they've paid us about $10 million, and they owe us some stuff. And we really like these guys because if you look, they pay, in 28 days before it's due, and we really do like these guys, believe me. What also is kind of cool is down here, we've got a full history of all the invoices that have been provided by that have been provided to that customer, so we can actually get to them. And what's actually interesting too is that we have this set up so that it's updated every 5 minutes from our accounting system. So there's no question of, oh, did so-and-so pay that invoice yet? No, we can look it up and we can tell right now. But what else is pretty cool, and where I was going with all of this, I'm going to go back to studies here again, and because I don't want to show you live data, I want to show you the dummy one. Here is just a test sample here of another study. This one is just a test one, and as you can see, we've got the same accounts receivable info. We have cases that are related to the invoicing, but if you can see, there's an accounts receivable record here. We can click on that. And we can simply get to the record, and there's normally information about the invoice amount and all that, but because of the constraints we have, it's not set up because we're looking in the live system right now. I don't want to create false records in the accounting basis, but go ahead and click View Invoice. And there's the invoice. Isn't that nice? But if you notice down here, we've also got 21 pages. Do we really have 21 pages of invoice? No. It's because we're basically, in this case, submitting an expense report, and we're providing the expenses that we have incurred with that. So now the customer has copies of those, and we've kind of got that on permanent electronic record for that study now. So not super complicated, but certainly useful, because what it's done is it's taken a lot of load off the finance organization and putting it directly into the project manager's hands, and the project managers are the guys that are dealing with the customer day in and day out. Okay. Okay, so next one is really how do we integrate some of the accounting information into the workflow and to increase cash flow? Well, you've already kind of seen what we've done. We've put in the accounts receivable information that's now in it's in the study record, so now that the project manager, they can see how current the customer is, which is really great. But we did this for a really particular reason. We had a single collections department that really wasn't that effective. We had a DSO that was at one point almost over 80 days. You'll be amazed what it is now. And we realized that model wasn't working simply because we didn't have enough AR collections agents to cover everybody they had to cover. And the other was, it was really, they don't deal with the customer day in and day out. It really was better to go to the project managers. And so what we wanted to do was get it to the project managers. And so what you're about to see is we've taken our cost point accounting system, and we have utilized our accounts receivable two-way feed information. And we also have built a lot of work rules, all within Salesforce, for tasks, cases, and rules, such that, for example, if a particular invoice is over $10,000 and it's beyond 30 or 15 days past due, then it's going to go hit the project manager and say, go call the customer and find out what's going on. Why haven't they answered this? We also, by the way, we've attached to yet another database. One of our other business entities is on Navision, not on CostPoint. So To get a total company view, we've also connected Navision through Cognos. So now we have two financial systems talking to each other. And we've developed a series of reports that employ conditional formatting that actually formats things identically using the same rules that we use in Salesforce, so that if you want to be able to track what invoices should be actionable, for example, we can figure that out. So here we go with that one. So hopping back to Salesforce for a minute, if we go back to our test study here, and we go ahead and get into a case, for example, this is a case right here. You can see this is a case where we had rules that generated that the invoice was past due. Please go get it. Please find out why it's not been paid. Did the client have the invoice? Was there a billing problem? Do you have to resend the invoice? And we follow what happened. So it's just very straightforward stuff. But I think what's also really kind of an interesting use of the Cognos reports is if we go back, and that's actually Folsom, so I need to get into Cognos here. And this is a separate area of Cognos I'm going to show you in just a minute, because we have a separate piece that's just built into Salesforce. And I will go find that one for you here real quickly. Buried deep in the bowels of our reporting database, and so it's actually just a live report too, with just the names of the customers and things like that covered up, so we can show you. And so this is a report, not very exciting, just a bunch of numbers, not just a bunch of numbers, and that's a good thing. We look at this and I say, okay, these are all good. People are paying us. People are paying us. People are paying us. Actually, this looks really good. Oh, well, there's one. And you can see that it's already met the rules here, that it's 35 days past due, more than $20,000. And just so the accountants in the room can also see, we're not perfect. We have quite a few others that we have to go chase. But at least what it does is starts focusing on where we have to focus our attention, who's tracking it down, and it's kind of in one place. And that's really been valuable to us. So that's been really cool. So, and then again, as you see this, or as you probably don't actually see, this report has been pulling from two data sources. This is pulling from two separate financial systems simultaneously. Okay. So case 3, the integration of multiple data sources and operations management through the company portal. And this is really, I think, the case where we have heavily leveraged both Salesforce and Cognos here. And really what we've done here is we've got our study databases, we've got our collection point here where we can do a lot of the analysis. We've got our disparate systems that were built in here. We've got our financial systems, and all of that is feeding into Salesforce. And it's going into multiple Salesforce or multiple sources for critical operations reporting and information. The availability of these reports is directly from Salesforce, and it keeps multiple sites synchronized. This is one of the reasons that we're really able to keep our multiple sites and working together through multiple time zones, because we've actually built mechanisms for messages to be left and transactions to be noted that somebody's worked on it, and things like that. So in any case, let's go on to the demonstration for that. And for this one, we're going to jump over to our work performed area. And this work performed area, this is actually, remember where we had that system that was out there that kind of collects all of the data, all of the study databases? This is where that interface is. I can't open it because I haven't redacted it, but it's actually pretty interesting to talk about. But there's a lot of work that our program managers do almost every day. And what we've done is we've actually, for them, built in a Cognos reporting portal directly into Salesforce. And so they can go in and they can get a list of the reports that are applicable to just that report or to just that area. So they can now self-service all of the information they need, such as study reconciliations, billing summaries, troubleshooting reports, key performance metrics, and things like that. And so in this case, a very common question I get is that we have a very complicated fee schedule, which basically says we can do a list of things, and you can only do so many units of each, and there's got to be a price. And they want to know over time, how much of the fee schedule have I utilized? And so we've got this report that basically goes out and does that. And the report itself isn't that terribly exciting until you realize that what it's doing is it's actually pulling data that originated from, and by the way, you can select multiple studies and all kinds of stuff like that, or single studies, and you can do a lot of different analyses from this. But what's important about this, and when you realize it, is that it's actually pulling data from three sources. It's pulling it from Salesforce, some of the data that's actually resident in Salesforce. It's pulling it from EBI, where the source of the fee schedule is kept and some of the unit information is kept. And it's pulling it from the financial system, all together into one report. And if it hadn't been for Salesforce or Cognos, there would have been no way to relate all this data. Unless you did some very complicated programming. So, and this is the case right here, where it's got a very simple fee schedule, list of all the things that, this is from an actual contract, by the way, all the things that we're allowed to do, what currency. These all come from Salesforce, or come from, these come from EBI, as does this information here. This information comes from our billing system, and then this is just a calculated field. So. Doesn't look like much, but there's a lot going on in the background. So I want to talk a little bit about results. Remember, at one point I said we were over 80 days on our collections in DSO. There were a lot of reasons for it that were more than just what we had, but in this case, at the time that we actually started the AR implementation and actually got it turned on, which was right around Q1, we had brought it back down to a little bit below, above 45 days. And you can see that, we've taken a good 8 or 9 days out of it just in 1 year. Actually, last month we ticked up just a little bit. I was going to put that data in. I thought, nah, it doesn't look right. I'm going to make it look a little better. But I think that you get the point that actually we have had a significant improvement. And for us, I mean, we have tens of millions of dollars out in our AR at any given time, and now we've got another 10 days use of that cash, and that's that starts adding up over time. Now, another thing that's been very critical for us is that even in these economic times, and the industry right now is a little flat for us, not necessarily down. Is that operating efficiency has been really important too, and we have had significant increases in productivity. I think we've gone from 1 PM handling roughly 6 studies at one time to the average right now is around 10. And our finance organization is a bit smaller, as I said, so we've gotten some good productivity gains there. Was it all because of Salesforce and this implementation? Absolutely not. But did it help? I would have to say that there'd be no way that we could have done it without having done some of these things. So So the key takeaways are that you can use the imaging software to achieve and enhance documentation that came from Cognos, and I think it's really important that you can pair that up, and it's important sometimes that you have static documents that aren't dependent on systems, but it's a good archive. You need to you can use Cognos functionality to mirror the Salesforce workflow in a way to manage what's going on in Salesforce, and it provides overall visibility to the status of the related data. And it's been very eye-opening for us to have those reports available to us because it tells us what Salesforce is doing and what it's telling people to do. And then finally, having I have to say, Cognos has just been absolutely essential for our ability to take multiple databases and provide a window for that to be to make sense of it in Salesforce. It's been really critical for us to do that, and it's been critical for us to do a lot of the reporting that we've done. So. And that's all, folks. Are there any questions? Yeah, front row. Oh, for the data feeds from. Yeah, we use two tools. We use one tool is I forgot to mention is a tool that's called Cast Iron, and it's by Cast Iron Systems. They're on the they're on the floor out there. And then a raging debate I have with my programmer is whether we should be using JavaScript or not. And there's for him it's easier, but for me the Cast Iron's more understandable and it has other advantages. So. Yep. Other questions? Yes. Do we have permissions restrictions between? Yes. So the question is can Salesforce and Cognos have the same permission set? So for same user could log in, use one login to get into both. Is that what you're looking for?
No. If you log into Salesforce, for example, you put your account tab, you want to use some of the account detail on that.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily everybody would be able to look at the account detail on it because of the permission levels.
That's correct. We have to set the permission levels in Cognos, and you have to set the permission levels in Salesforce. Now, I've been told, we haven't really explored this in depth, that it is possible to have them on the same permission set because our permission set for Cognos is actually set in the Active Directory, and for Salesforce it's independent. And I think it's just a matter of pointing one to the other. I don't know. I mean, Sebastian, you may know that. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah. The Cognos plugin that you have in Salesforce, is that, can you explain that a little bit? Is that the one that's on the App Machine, or is that something a little more custom you guys are doing?
No, it's not custom. It was actually a plugin that Cognos has, and I believe it's Composite Manager 4, is it?
Yeah, it's part of our core product, so it's not anything by separate. If you have Cognos 8 or above, you have that, the requirement.
Yeah, you do have to install it though, because I don't think it installs automatically. So, okay, other questions? Great. Yeah. We are pulling them into, we actually pull them into Iris, which basically takes, which is the OCR. There is another piece of software, I cannot remember the name, it comes from Iris, that basically just parses them into separate files, and also it parses some of the documents into separate files, and then if it sees duplicates, it puts them together in a certain order. Right. Right. And then all it does is it saves it to a predefined file directory where Salesforce knows to look for it if you hit that button. It's actually on our own server. We have a dedicated server that we point that to, and that's actually, I think, dictated in the setup of the object. So, but I could find that out for you.
We're using a document management system, so we bring it through our OCR, house it on our document management system, and we upload it to Salesforce, attach it to the object there, and also the console and see that same document. So two system combinations.
Oh, so you're passing it to two places at once.
We're holding it in the document management system.
Yeah. Oh.
The repository as well.
Yeah.
It's like a link.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That you take that link and run it. So I wonder if it's something, if Salesforce would be something.
No. We've just set up a place that just has thousands and thousands of files. So.
All right, thank you.
Can I get my little mic back?
No, I want it. Thank you. That was really cool. So how does that